Analysis. Cleo from 5 to 7. Analysis. In Agnes Varda's Cleo from 5 to 7, the concentrated sequence within the bustling cafe profoundly illustrates how cinematography, editing, and sound actively construct and interpret the mise-en-scene, transforming ordinary public space into a stark reflection of Cleo's profound isolation and existential dread. Through a strategic interplay of wide-angle framing, disjunctive jump cuts, and an abrupt shift in the soundscape, the film manipulates the visual field to render Cleo a peripheral, fragmented figure, thereby revealing the cafe's environment not as a place of connection, but as a stage for her agonizing self-consciousness and deepening alienation. This analysis will demonstrate how the film's formal choices collectively underscore Cleo's internal crisis, emphasizing her psychological distance from the indifferent world around her. Scene explained. In this brief but emotionally dense scene, we observe Cleo as she walks to a bustling cafe. As she makes her way through the city streets, the film abruptly cuts off the melancholic, non-diegetic sound of a song and replaces it with the jarring, realistic sound of city life, car horns, street chatter, and the general murmur of a crowd. This sudden shift in the soundscape immediately grounds the scene in a harsh reality, stripping away the self-pitying filter of her music. We see Cleo's beautiful composed exterior in stark contrast with her inner turmoil, a duality highlighted as she sits alone at a table and orders a drink. Once seated, Cleo appears physically and emotionally detached from her surroundings. The camera, using a wide shot, frames her as a small, isolated figure amidst a vibrant, indifferent crowd. She sips her coffee, her expression a mix of anxiety and lethargy. As her gaze darts from around the room, the film's use of jump cuts fragments her movement, a quick cut from her taking a sip to her setting down the cup, then to her looking away. This editing style prevents the viewer from fully immersing in her perspective, instead creating a sense of psychological discontinuity that mirrors her own fragmented state of mind. Her restlessness is palpable as she fidgets, constantly searching for something that isn't there, and this inability to find peace is a key theme of the sequence. The scene concludes with her getting up to leave, her brief meet in the cafe serving as a small agonizing chapter in her wait for test results. The journey, both physical and emotional, is entirely her own. Cinematography. In the cafe scene, the cinematography is central to conveying Cleo's internal state. Director Agnes Varda uses a wide-angle lens to deliberately frame Cleo as a small, isolated figure within the bustling cafe, creating a visual metaphor where the camera's distance from her mirrors her emotional detachment from the world. This approach makes us feel like detached observers, amplifying her sense of solitude. The camera's unhurried, almost documentary-like approach also highlights Cleo's stillness and anxiety in contrast to the lively flow of activity around her. Additionally, the strategic use of reflections in the glass surfaces of the cafe presents Cleo not as a single stable figure, but as fragmented image, visually expressing her existential crisis and the disjunction between her external appearance and her internal reality. Mise-en-scene. In a cafe scene from Cleo 5 to 7, the mise-en-scene serves as a powerful contrast to Cleo's internal state, transforming a seemingly ordinary public space into a stage of her profound isolation. The bustling details of the cafe, the patrons, the waiters, and the constant noise create an environment of indifference that highlights her solitude. Furthermore, this setting forces Cleo to shed her public persona as a glamorous star by placing her in an unadorned, everyday space. The mise-en-scene strips away her usual props an audience, making her vulnerability visible. The contrast between her carefully styled appearance and the raw and polished reality of the cafe underscores her emotional and psychological transition from a performer to a woman grappling with her identity. Editing. The editing in the scene is a prime example of French New Wave style directly contributing to the film's existential themes. Varda employs jump cuts to create a sense of psychological discontinuity as Cleo performs simple actions like drinking coffee or looking around. The film jumps between different moments in time, disrupting the smooth flow of the narrative. This fragmentation of movement and time reflects Cleo's own fractured state of mind as she grapples with her mortality. The rapid, almost jarring nature of the cuts prevents the audience from fully settling into a single perspective, forcing us to feel her anxiety and her inability to find a peace. The editing choice makes the scene feel restless and ungrounded, transforming a mundane event into a visual representation of her inner turmoil. Sound. The sound in the cafe scene is equally deliberate and effective as Cleo leaves the quiet solitude of her walk and enters the public space. The sudden and complete absence of her personal soundtrack, the non-diegetic music of her song is striking, is replaced by the immersive diegetic sounds of the cafe, the clatter of silverware, the murmur of conversations, and the distant street noise. This abrupt shift from a subjective inward-focused soundscape to an objective outward-focused one highlights Cleo's newfound exposure to a world that is oblivious to her personal crisis. The cafe's sounds are loud and indifferent, emphasizing her feelings of alienation and vulnerability. By stripping away the comforting layer of her music, the sound design forces both Cleo and the viewer to confront the raw, unsympathetic reality of her situation.